As for this particular car, we're probably going to do some more drag races with it and hold on to it until our Cybertruck is ready, which might be this year. Hopefully, maybe. Guys?
It's hard to believe that we shot our first wrap-up video for our long-term Tesla Model Y performance nearly 3 years ago. And in that time, we may have gotten to test a Cybertruck, but we're still waiting for our Cybertruck, so here she remains. But even our patience has finally run out, and it's time for us to say goodbye to our red rocket. And this gives us an opportunity, shall we say a semi-intended opportunity, to answer what I think is a very interesting question. And that is, how has the battery held up after nearly 4 years and 40,000 miles of ownership? And what impact has that had on the Model Y's range and performance? To answer that question, I'm going to take you guys along with me as the Model Y retraces its steps on the award-winning, world-famous, expert-approved Edmunds EV range test. And earlier this week, we also took the Model Y back to our drag strip to get its 0 to 60 and quarter mile times to see if, like me, it's lost some speed as it's gotten older. So, the car is charged to full, the V-Box is set up, it's time to hit the road. So this is technically our third wrap-up video for our long-term Model Y, and if you're looking for a more comprehensive overview on what it's been like to live with, the good, the bad, the ugly, be sure to check out those 2 videos, and also head over to our long-term blog where you can see all of our experiences written out. And I'd also ask you to maybe like and subscribe to the Edmunds channel to keep up with all of the exciting things we have going on. Our Model Y came to us with an EPA estimated range of 291 miles, but like many of the Teslas that we test on our Edmunds EV range test, it fell well short of that figure and it only covered 263 miles. Fast forward to today, and if you go to the Tesla website, you'll see that they pulled that projection down a little bit, but we're not going to base our result today off of that. We're going to compare it to that 263 mile figure that we got earlier. And this is the 2020 Tesla Model Y Performance with the additional performance upgrade, and that makes it a Model Y Performance. We also checked the box for this very loud bright red paint job and opted for the full self-driving suite, which at the time cost us another $5,000, bringing the total cost of this vehicle to $68,700. Now, as we know, Tesla pricing can be a bit fluid. So if you were to option up the same vehicle today in the exact same way, it would cost you about $66,000 even after Tesla's price cuts on the Model Y. And that's mostly because that full self-driving suite that we bought back in the day for about $5,000, the price on that has gone all the way up to $12,000. And a little bit later in this video, we're going to talk about whether or not we think that's worth it, but that's mostly where the similarities in price come from. As of now, the Model Y does qualify for that $7,500 federal tax rebate in most cases, unlike the Model 3 now, but that is again another situation that can change at any moment, so head over to Edmunds.com for the latest info on which vehicles are eligible for that rebate. Now, we are expecting a slightly lower range result today for a few reasons. One would be that the trip computer, when we started, only estimated us to have about 247 miles of range, and because batteries naturally degrade over time. We're also a little worried that the degradation on our Model Y could be a little bit worse because we haven't been the most gentle owners to this vehicle, let's say.
And boot it! miles an hour. Oh, huge rolling in on the brake.
Whew, that is a lot of races. By my count, the Model Y has been in 11 different races here on the Edmunds channel, and it won 7 of those matchups, racking up a pretty impressive kill list. So yeah, I would say we were a little bit hard on this thing, and it's also recommended, of course, that for an EV, you only charge the thing to about 80% for daily use. But for us, where we needed to really extract full performance out of the Model Y on a semi-regular basis, we were charging up to 100%. It also got used for road trips a lot, so we would charge it up full to make, full use of that range. So I would wager that, in our hands, the Model Y has been through more than it would be in the hands of a normal consumer. That is, unless you have a secret U-Drags racing club that I don't know about, but if you do, maybe drop a comment so I can come watch.
Let's go, let's go! Woo!
our driving impressions for the Model Y haven't really changed over the 4 years that we've had it. It basically drives the same as it did when we got it, for better or worse. The big complaint has always been ride quality. These 21-inch wheels and the suspension, you really feel every bump and jitter on the road. And when you're on, the highways and byways here in Los Angeles, that means that every road seam, you can kind of feel the cabin just kind of jump around a little bit. It's just a very unsettled feeling at all times when you're driving it. Now, our vehicle is part of the very early build run for the Model Y, and as such, the build quality has not been great. Basically, ever since that we've gotten it, their back seat has had this kind of creak and rattle to it, which becomes very annoying over long trips. And we've also had some other quality issues as well, like panel gaps that don't match. Our visor here, the holder for this side of it has popped out multiple times, can't get that to stay in. Our rear spoiler also came detached at one point, and we had to bring that in to get it repaired. Also, this winter in Southern California, we've had an unseasonably large amount of rain, and one of the reasons that I know that as well is because our taillight has kept some of that rain for us. It is worth mentioning, though, that other Model Ys that we've tested in more recent years, the quality has seemed to gone up. They don't creak and rattle as much, and things seem just much better put together. So if you do buy a new Model Y, you can probably escape some of the issues that we've experienced. One of the things that we've enjoyed about the Model Y during our ownership of it is that its technology has really improved over time. When we first got the vehicle, there were a lot of problems that we had with the screen sort of shutting off at random and some software bugs. But as I looked at our logbook over time, those complaints have really lessened. And now no one really complains about the technology in this vehicle at all. The software seems to have reached this sort of like steady state where it's just very reliable. And I would say that from a technology and an in-cabin technology perspective, especially within our EV fleet, the Tesla might actually be one of the more reliable vehicles that we have now on that front. Those software updates have also included big updates to the safety systems, most notably the inclusion of the full self-driving beta. Now, we covered the full self-driving beta more extensively in our full self-driving test. So things that you need to know basically are: one, it's not actually self-driving. You still need to really be present and ready to take control over the vehicle. And two, it still doesn't work very well on city streets. And there was an occasion where I was coming up to a stopped red light trying to make a right turn, and it felt like the vehicle was going to make a right turn through that red light with traffic still crossing me. So I took control of the vehicle. Full self-driving, the biggest problem I think is still the name. It's really not self-driving at all. You really need to be attentive and ready to take over at all times. And that brings us sort of full circle to the issue of cost. Now, for us on this Model Y, we were lucky because we paid $5,000 for the full self-driving suite of technology when we bought the vehicle. And in the intervening years, we've gotten all of those safety updates. But like I said before, if you're going to buy this vehicle today, that same suite of safety technologies would cost you $12,000. And at that price, it's a much harder trigger to pull because it's still really not full self-driving. The only time where I could see someone really wanting to pay that much for this package is if you do believe in Tesla's ability to deliver a full self-driving experience, one that actually is one and not just called one, within the time that you own the vehicle. And in that case, it might be worth it, but as it sits now, I don't necessarily think that system is worth the full cost. And if it were me buying a Tesla, I would probably leave that box unchecked, though we here at Edmunds, we're probably going to buy the suite every single time so we can keep testing it and letting you guys know if it's getting any better. So that's about all the talking that I have, and the only thing left to do now is to keep driving this thing until we get down to about 10 miles of range left and land back at the Edmunds office where we're going to charge it up and get those final numbers for you. All right, we are back. The car is all filled up and we've got numbers for you. So the very first time that we tested the speed on this vehicle, it ran the 0 to 60 miles an hour in 3.7 seconds with a quarter mile time of 11.8 seconds at 115.6 miles an hour. 4 years later, we came back, tested the Model Y on the exact same track in very similar conditions, and it got 3.8 seconds to 60 miles an hour, so very close there. And in the quarter mile, 12.1 seconds at 113.3 miles per hour. We lost a little bit more in the quarter mile, which means that our Model Y's top end speed isn't quite where it was before, but the fact remains that for a family SUV, this thing is almost too fast. Now it's time to talk about range and battery capacity. So, just like when we tested the acceleration numbers, we replicate those conditions as close as we can. This vehicle was run on the exact same route with the exact same testing parameters, and we even refilled it on the exact same charger. So we've kept all of those variables as constant as we could. Now in that first test, this vehicle covered 263 miles on the Edmunds EV range test. And when we reran it yesterday, it covered 245 miles on the exact same test, and that's very close to the computer's initial estimate of 247 miles when we started that drive. That means that our Model Y has lost about 7% of its range in our 4 years, and now we're going to look at the battery fill data to see if the battery loss sort of matches that. So the first time it ran this test, it took 75 kilowatt hours to charge from near empty to full. In this test, it took 71.4 kilowatt hours to do the same charge, which means that we've lost about 3.6 kilowatt hours of battery capacity, or roughly 5%. So battery down 5%, range down 7%. That's a bit more than we expected given the age of the vehicle. But again, as I mentioned earlier, we haven't treated this thing the gentlest. It's done a lot of races. It's been charged to full more than you probably should. So if you're using this just as a normal daily driver, your loss will probably be a bit less than that. Now, I will caveat those results with this. Even though it's lost some range and battery capacity, this still might be the member of the Edmunds long-term EV fleet that I want to take on a road trip. And that's because Tesla's supercharger network, it still sets the standard for public charging, and it isn't even close. So if I can go far and I can stop at Tesla superchargers instead of getting stuck at an EA station where we're not even sure it's going to work, give me the Tesla for a long trip any day. So with that final round of testing, it is time to say goodbye to our Model Y. Even though our Cybertruck isn't here yet, it just exists as a figment of the imagination and some money that's currently sitting in Tesla's pocket. And this is kind of sad because for the first time, we won't have a Tesla in the Edmunds long-term fleet. Just kidding. We wouldn't do that to you guys. And get back to the Edmunds offices to put it back to charge. That was weird. I'm going to do that one more time. This is 5 David, take 1. 5 David Lucio, take 1.